Hey everyone, so excited for today's episode of The Shift, where we're being joined by Deena Zimmerman, who's the National Co-Chair of Retail for SVN and a Vice President out of SVN's Chicago office. Deena is one of my favorite people in the industry. She's such a rock star, so bright. We have such an awesome conversation discussing all sorts of unique facets of marijuana as an asset class and working with marijuana clients, which is so interesting to me. And then talking about how to be able to utilize technology to get ahead, which Deena does as well as anyone in this industry. So this is an absolutely fantastic conversation, a can't miss episode in my opinion, and really excited to have you join us. Thanks. Hey everyone, welcome to The Shift. So excited to be joined by Deena Zimmerman. Deena, how are you?
I'm great. How are you? I'm so excited to be doing this with you.
I know it's been a long time coming. I can't wait to dive in here. I'm sure everyone that's listening already knows you, but for those that don't, tell us about Deena. Tell us about your background and how you got into real estate.
Yes, and happy Ash Wednesday to everybody, by the way. My name is Deena Zimmerman, and I'm with SVN Chicago Commercial. I also work out of our Denver office, building a retail leasing team, and I am the co-chair of the Retail Product Council for SVN International. And I've been in the business for 17 years. And interestingly enough, I started when I graduated from college. I worked for an insurance company in southern Minnesota, which is where I'm from originally. And I was the only female. It was very male dominated, and I loved it. Like I have the personality and the tolerance to handle it, and it was a lot of cold. It was cold calling door to door, and back in the day. And then I was transferred to Chicago with that job. Left after about 6 months, and then I worked for a real estate trade publication, and I actually sold advertising on the residential side in Chicago and this is like 2005, 6, and 7, right? When things were booming. So it was developers, it was brokers, banks, you name it, right? And our sister publication was a commercial publication, a very prominent one to the state, Illinois Real Estate Journal and Midwest Real Estate News. So for those of you who are in the Midwest, should be familiar. And I loved real estate and all the things about it. And I knew I wanted to get my license, but selling homes, it just didn't feel right to me. And I have tons of friends who are residential realtors. I don't know how they do it because they have to represent me when I buy houses. I can't even get through the first page of the contract. So I went to a commercial event for Midwest Real Estate News, and I don't know, something just clicked in me. And one of my mentors at the time, he's a friend of mine still to this day. He's a developer at the time, was developing a lot of Chase Bank sites. And he's like, you would be great at this. You obviously understand it's male dominated. You can handle it. And I'm like, am I crazy? It's 2007. We all knew that, the bubble was going to burst. We were going to go through this deep recession. And he gave me such great advice, which is really fun because now here, talking about a potential recession now, which I don't think it's going to be as bad as it was then, but talking to a lot of new brokers, they ask me the same thing, like, am I crazy getting into this now? And I tell them what my friend Savash told me. He's like, the only certainty is that we're going to have up markets and we're going to have down markets. And if you can find your niche and learn to make money in a down cycle, you will always be successful. And because there's a lot of opportunity in downturns as well. And he was right. And, here I am, and I feel more poised for whatever is going to happen this year. And I think there's nothing but opportunity. And I jumped right in, and the bubble burst. And that's where I created my niche. I do retail. I do a lot of development work where we, on the retail side with landlords. But my bread and butter is tenant rep. I love working with entrepreneurs, especially females.
That's fantastic. Thank you for the background there. Can you tell us a little bit more about kind of what the role entails for you as National Council Co-Chair for retail?
So what's really cool about SVN, we have, 200 plus offices roughly, not just around the country, but around the nation. And we're a full service brokerage. So we cover, you name the food group, we cover it. I mean, from retail, leasing, office, up to capital markets. We've even got urban farming, golf resorts, marinas, all of it, right? And so what I've been with the brand for 8 years now, and they actually recruited me over because I lead tenant rep within the company as well. And what attracted me to it though was the product councils, right? So myself and Ryan Embry in our Portland office are the co-chairs for retail. So anything retail related, actually we have our call tomorrow, and brokers from all around the country join. And we usually have different topics. We talk about trends, what we're seeing on the leasing and the investment side. And again, there's product councils for every asset class, and we can invite our clients on. So if I want to understand what's happening in multifamily as it relates to retail, I will join Reed Bennett's multifamily call. So it's a very powerful tool within the brand, because we do a lot of business. Now I'm in Chicago, right? I probably do 40% of my business here and 60% all around the country with other advisors.
Wow, well, that's really powerful.
Yeah.
Um, you mentioned nailing a niche in the beginning, which is funny because that's what a lot of people say when you're building a startup. You got to nail the niche, and then you can grow from there, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that you're known for is the cannabis queen, or the queen of cannabis in commercial real estate. Can you just talk about that as an asset class? I mean, it's growing so fast. It's so awesome to be kind of known as working within that asset class. We'd just love to learn more about how that came to be for you as well.
Oh yeah, and it's so fun. And I will tell the big joke. Like, I'm just gonna say it now because people are gonna do it. If you just Google my name, cannabis, it comes up. Cannabis Queen. I did not do that. Somebody else did, but I'm owning it, man. And the Real Deal did an article where they interviewed me. This is several years ago, and the article came out, and there's a big cannabis leaf behind me, and my whole face is green. And I didn't know they were putting that out, and I didn't see it at first. And one of the guys in my office did, and like they relentlessly, made fun of me, but it was really fun actually. So yeah, I in 2014 they announced that Illinois was going to go. They approved medical cannabis. So at the time, this is when all the everything that was cannabis was really happening in Colorado and in California. So there was a very large craft grow facility slash dispensary in Denver that wanted to get into the Chicagoland market. So they wanted to be downtown, so opened the first dispensary. Now, mind you, this was in 2014. So, you're calling landlords, you're calling brokers, you say, hey, and my client was very prominent. They actually worked with the Illinois Department of Agriculture to create the rules that are in place today as it relates to craft grow, right? So, I mean, super dialed in, didn't matter. You're calling brokers and landlords, hey, I have this client, cannabis. You call me about weed, and they used to hang up on me. And the zoning was such then that it was the needle in a haystack, in a bigger haystack. So you originally found, say, 150 sites, and then you had to narrow it down based on distance from, schools and daycares and all the things. Those were the rules back then. And then the zoning, and it wound up being, seriously, out of 150, 175 sites, I think there were maybe 7 that worked. But also, then there's 20 groups going after the same 7, right? And then we finally identified one, and obviously this is back in the day where we were being charged the green tax. So a normal property, say they're asking average rents in the neighborhood we found $35 a foot. Well, if we wanted to go there, it was $95 a foot. And right, and so, but it was, listen, I made my niche before that working with unique uses, whether it was salons and spas or animal uses or whatever, that are very challenging in terms of zoning. So when I was a brand new broker, I learned how to navigate my way through the city of Chicago and all the zoning maps, and really putting together puzzle pieces, which is, I'm to this day, this is why I love real estate technology so much, because it helps make my job easier. So I enjoyed that part of the cannabis, is figuring out the solutions and finding the properties and getting in there, but also understanding that this was a growing market, knowing that eventually we'd go, what's the word I'm looking for? Sorry.
Recreational, legal.
Recreational, sorry, one of those days. And I wanted to be at the forefront of it. And they actually flew me out to Denver, and I got to tour dispensaries, which was amazing because, for those of you who've been in one, I mean, a lot of them look like Apple stores. They're beautiful retail boutiques. And I got to tour Craft Grow, which was one of the coolest things I've actually done personally. They're mad sciencing cannabis, and it's clean and it's gorgeous and it's beautiful, and people care about the patients. and I mean, it's saving lives, and it's really been fun to be a part of it. So you really have to know what you're doing to properly represent your client too. And there's a lot of brokers out there now who think they can get in this game. And I'm really grateful for, because myself and really there's only a handful of others in Chicagoland that truly know, and we've truly been there since the very beginning.
Yeah.
And I'm one of the only females, so I think that's where the joke came in as the cannabis queen. But now I've become, which I love though, because when people Google, that's how they find me. And I've actually become a consultant for a lot of groups too, because you got to learn to walk before you run sometimes.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. One of the things I think is so unique about it as an asset class is like the involvement you have to have in permitting, I'm sure, right? I mean, people as a commercial real estate advisor, they seek you out as the subject matter expert for real estate. And with that as an asset class, so much of it is permitting and zoning. Can you just like talk about that learning curve a little bit and like some of the unique value that you bring to those types of clients? I mean, I'm sure they're kind of finding you even earlier in the process than a normal tenant would even too.
Yeah. Well, and they are. And it's interesting because one of the groups that I'm working with, we started talking in 2020 just in anticipation of, actually, we talked during the pandemic all the time and we were all sheltered in place. So I never even met them in person until like earlier last year, which is so crazy because we're this bonded group. But it was preparing them because they had to understand zoning. And even if the zoning worked, no matter what, you still have to go through the special use process and through the zoning board of appeals. And then you also have to give a presentation to, a neighborhood or in the suburbs, a village group. And so you have to really there's pressure points, especially with these neighborhood groups. They want to, they don't want it to be that stigmatized head shop, or even think the liquor stores with the bars on them, on the windows. They don't want that. They want to understand security. They want to understand, that this is something that's going to be safe around their children, all of the things, right? And so you have to be really dialed in with that messaging, with marketing decks, and also understanding timelines as it relates to permitting, special use. And because, listen, and we have to do that with all of our clients. And while there's always going to be hiccups along the way, my whole thing is I just want you to have as few as possible, and let's get any surprises out of the way now and set realistic expectations. And then the pandemic hit, and then supply chain issues hit. So all of these timelines went out the window, take them times two. And, this is where we're at. But knowing that, everybody's super comfortable with the process. While we're frustrated it's taking longer, because I prepared them ahead of time and prepared myself, we get it. And now everybody can be more nimble. So it's never be afraid to ask questions. I'm always picking up the phone because especially cannabis, it's ever changing. You can have a suburb municipality that opts in one day and they're saying, yep, we want to do cannabis. The very next we've seen, forget it, now we don't. Okay, now we do. They're a little bipolar sometimes, but it's just staying on top of that so you can be the first in for your client, because some of these municipalities are only allowing one or two dispensaries. So how do I stay ahead of that other dispensary?
Yeah, what a unique additional layer to actually just mention there, because I think with retail and with traditional asset class, you have to stay on top of there's such a huge fluctuation in terms of availabilities. But now you have this like additional layer, which is like the permitting and like the towns approving or not approving. So it's even more you have to juggle as the advisor. That's so difficult.
It
Um,
is. But it's really interesting though too. It's fun to be a part of it.
yeah, absolutely. I'm sure that makes it fun. It's fast moving, right? And like you said, it's a growing market. It's a great place to be.
Yeah.
I think being known that the cannabis queen and the retail queen, I think you're on the forefront, really, of this new type of advisory, which is something I've talked about a little bit on the podcast before, but just something about like personal brand and brand development as an advisor and using technology and internet to kind of grow that. And I think you're such an expert at that. And can you talk about kind of cultivating a personal brand in commercial real estate and what it's meant to you and what it's meant to the business, and potentially any advice you give to people who are trying to do the same?
Oh man, I love that question. I appreciate you asking that because it's a personal passion for mine, especially being in the industry as long as I have. So I know I'm sitting down. I'm 6'2". I have hair that goes all over the place, whether it's a mohawk or this. I used to have a nose ring, but it fell out, and I have a very loud voice and overly enthusiastic, and really wear my heart on my sleeve. Like I just I don't believe in pussyfooting around things. Like what you see is what you get, and I've kind of always been like that. And instead of trying to hide those things, let's embrace them. And, and I guess I always say embrace your weird, but just be your most enthusiastic and authentic self, because yeah, this probably does turn off certain people. Well, we probably should be working together anyway.
Right.
And, I realized early on that made me memorable. But there's a great responsibility in that too. My dad taught me all you have is your name and your reputation. And if you screw that up, you're done. And as big of a community as Chicago is, we're a very small, tight knit commercial community. And, I take that real seriously, but I embrace it. And I want to do the things that I love, because I think for anybody, don't pigeonhole yourself in something you don't enjoy doing. I find especially young brokers, or we call them advisors within SVN. Well, I hear that this asset class, you can make more money than this one, so I'm going to go after it. Well, do you even like it?
Right.
Like, you're going to make the money will come if you do what you enjoy, right? Like, never lead with that. And I just follow the things that I have a lot of fun with. And even, listen, I do tenant rep. There's a lot of brands that I'm very grateful that come to me and ask me to represent them. If I don't like it or believe in it, I can't, because it doesn't align with my values. And so then, as it relates to social media, I just pump up those things about myself and my personal brand. And it's just kind of created its own monster now. And I'm finding other people are starting to do this, who are asking me for advice, and like, they're soaring. They're on the podcast now and all of that. And I think it's great. And as you asked about technology, I'm a total geek about real estate tech. I don't think you have to have 100 tools in your toolbox, but just have a few that will make you more successful and, quite frankly, just more nimble.
Yeah, absolutely. I think some of the best sales advice I've ever heard is be who you are and love what you sell, right?
Yep.
And it's just so in line with what you just mentioned. People are choosing asset classes because they're trying to follow the money. That's a dead end, right? Either you're going to be miserable or you're not going to make as much money as you could have, right? So
people can read through that.
yeah,
some of my clients are like, "Gosh, you really are enthusiastic about my coffee brand." I go, "Because your coffee's effing good." And so go out and push that, and because I'm honored that you make me have me as a part of your team. Like, it's to me, it's not broker client. It's, I'm a part of your team. I become a part of your family, and I don't want to just do one deal with you. I want to be with you. And I want to watch you get married and have babies and do all the things and be a part of that. And it's really fun.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. I think you just mentioned prop tech, right? And I'd love to, your work. There's the thing that's so interesting for you and your business. You said 60% is on a national basis. There's so much collaboration that has to happen, so many different requirements you're running at a given time. Can you talk about your use of technology today, how you're using it to help be organized and work with clients? Just would love to kind of double click on that with you.
Yeah, no, good word, good transition too. Well, and it's funny because not only is it helping my clients themselves and myself be more nimble, but I'm using it to win assignments. So for example, I do retail. And I actually geek out on demographics. I love heat maps. I freak out, geek out on consumer spending habits, and really just like the psychographics of an area, and so how people spend money. So I'm a huge proponent of RPR commercial, which is in Esri, our GIS. Yep. And it's great because, we dive in, and you'll have a client with a certain, they're doing Brazilian sushi, for example, this is a true story. I had someone reach out and they said, "Oh, well, we want to be in the West Loop." I go, "Oh, sushi in the West Loop. How,
original?" Yeah.
There's one like every other. And I said, "Tell me, like, who's your client? What normally, like, is their demographic, money, what are they making income wise?" And it was interesting because a lot of it was, younger women, making six figures, they preferred to buy this XYZ. So I'm able to pull up those demographics and that data within RPR, and you reverse engineer it. And then it says, well, actually, based on that, this is the neighborhood you should be looking. And it's really fun because it's fun. The technology makes me look good because then you're right. And it really, can never fail you. And especially being able to go in and then pull sales numbers and really like heat map layers as it relates to co-tenancy. Maybe, my coffee shop wants to be near hospitals and Starbucks, their competition, and schools. So to be able to use that tech. What I love that I'm talking to you, and this is obviously we didn't talk about this ahead of time, but like, we love LeaseUp. And, well, but look at all the tenants I'm working around the country. So, we can go into LeaseUp, and it's the different projects with the different people. And maybe this person has access to this and that person. And then we're getting out of email and we're getting in LeaseUp, and so nobody's missing anything. And the fact that you can, with the tours and everything, and that has made us so much more nimble. And it's fun to then tell, because some of my tenants don't love using that stuff. And we
Sure.
tell them, you have to. And we're actually doing, because I love you, you have to. And it will actually make your life easier.
Yeah.
So between that, we use Basecamp quite a bit as
Yep.
well in the separate communication. And it's getting us out of email, and it's getting us into because email to me is the death of productivity. And so this really gets you into being productive, and the ultimate goal is the site selection. So it's really fun. And I know there's a lot of people who ask me about tech, and they say, I just don't have time to learn it. You have got to take the time to save the time. It is saving me so much time and winning me so much business. You got to look bigger picture than that.
Yeah, it's something I always tell brokers, because they say the same thing, right? We don't have the time to do it, or brokers will say, how can I best learn technology? And brokers will spend so much time researching the market, as they should, right? They should do that. And I always say, take just 5% of the amount of effort and time you put into memorizing stacking plans and things like that, and just learn about tech. That will
Yeah.
pay as big a dividend, if not more, for you over the next 6 months. It just starts small, but start. You have to. It
Start.
just is, it's a
Yeah.
requisite now, right?
And
Um,
and also, just sorry, on that note, technology is ever changing, right? Like, CRM is a great example. You find this one awesome tool, and then next week, something with the big shiny, we're brokers, so like we follow all the shiny objects. I'm of the mindset, you get into something and you like it, just put your head down and use it. Yeah, there's probably something out there that looks better, but you still have to learn it, and everything has its issues. And I think that's where people get really scared. Like, what if I jump into this, but then there's always going to be something better. But get into what you want and really just use it and love it and stick with it for the long term.
Right. That's what I would tell people too. Like, there's one thing I can guarantee you, is that it's not going to be perfect, and that's okay. Right. It's still going to be better than what you're doing, and you have to just go through the educational process. Right.
Yeah, you have to.
Just people getting comfortable with that. One of the things that you and I talked a little bit about this in the past, and I think one of the things that's unfortunate in the industry is there's still a lot of diversity issues, right? And it's the thing that I'm so excited with the shift. We're featuring women leaders in commercial real estate like yourselves, and I'm so excited about seeing women, people of color, other underrepresented communities have a stronger voice and presence in commercial real estate. Obviously, you're a big part of that as well. How can women get more involved in the kind of leveraging social and networking groups within the industry to better their career? And any advice, I guess, more generally, that you would give women who are just starting out here, who want to grow their voice in the market? Like, what would you be telling them right now?
Oh, I love that you asked that, because I look back and I cringe when I first got in, because I didn't fight hard enough for commissions. I didn't fight hard enough to be heard, because, the fact remains, and unfortunately and fortunately, still to this day, 17 years later, um, when I'm going into a meeting, and majority of the time there's rarely another woman, and if there is, we're still the minor, there's still way more men in the room. We always have to be 3 times more prepared, always, because if a guy and even if it's a guy that's a friend of mine, but if he catches me making a mistake, they're on top of me. If another guy does, they let it slide. Now, sometimes you can have two attitudes about that, like, great, and I have to deal with that. My attitude is, hey, what's wrong with being 3 times smarter than everybody
Yeah.
and knowing your stuff, right? Because that makes you the expert and people pay attention. I'm not a believer in speaking just to be heard, but if you're in a room, make sure you say something, and say something thoughtful and meaningful, because we do need to be heard. And don't be afraid to challenge somebody. I'm not, listen, I'm a friendly person and I want us to be friends, but I'm not going to compromise my values or your integrity, and I will fight back, and I fight for things. And I'm really tired of men calling women emotional, because guess what? When a man gets angry, that's emotional. So throw that back. So fight for everything. And I just at this point in my life and in my career, I want to be a resource for women. And I don't care if they work for a competing firm. There's no such thing. We are women in this, and I'm here to help and support because there is a place for us. It's finding that voice. And to your point, it is leveraging social media. I was never in college. I was never in a sorority. I wished I had been because I think there is that sisterhood. But I feel like I'm in my own now, being with the Crew Network. I'm part of several influential women's groups, and I can't promote the Globe Street Women of Influence Conference enough. That's going to be this summer in July, and I went last year, and it was just life changing for me because it's
Wow.
500 women from all walks of life that are standing up and saying, I'm here, I hear you, I see you, how can I help you? You need a job. And it's being a part of those groups and being vulnerable and asking for help and asking questions. And it's, to me, I'm so grateful for that community because we help each other find jobs. We help each other get out of bad jobs and bad relationships and all of it.
Phenomenal answer. Thank you for that. I think one of the things you said that struck me a little bit was, you have to be more polished, have to be ready to go, but have an opinion. When you're in that room,
Yes.
have an opinion. And I think that's something that was a mentor of mine when I first started as a woman, early in my career as a mentor of mine. And she said that to me all the time, right? Because me, I was 23 trying to go in and get leadership roles and things like that. And, but I think she said, to stand out in the room, have an opinion, and to be on equal business stature, have an opinion, right?
And also, don't be afraid to ask a question because we're all there, right? If there's more than two people in the room and you're wondering about something, somebody else is too.
Right.
So I hate the whole it's probably going to be a dumb question. There's no such thing as a dumb question. The only dumb question is the one that's not asked. Raise your hand and ask.
Yeah,
Be bold.
I agree with that.
Yeah. Oh, and also, somebody gave me this piece of advice. I think it's super important to have a mentor. I mean, always, right? And that's the very first thing, especially a young woman in the industry should do, is not just a female mentor, but a male. But whoever's, I don't know if you're familiar with Beth Azor, the
Sure.
canvassing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beth and I talk about this a lot. And because we had read this article that you should have a mentor who's younger than you. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. I have one who's younger than me, and she really challenges me because she's the next generation down from me. So she's that difference. And the way she asks questions and sees things sometimes drives me nuts. But I love it because I'm like, okay, I got to think differently. So I encourage people to find somebody who's younger than you as well, because that's a really good mentor to have.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So there's so many trends that are changing, right, in the market, and I'd love to hear just kind of a general, kind of 30,000 foot view, if you will, just some of the bigger things that you've seen, themes that you've seen over the last 12 to 24 months within the retail space. You could share with the audience.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because for the first time since 2016, in 2022, more stores opened than closed. And obviously, a lot of them closed during the pandemic. What people need to be mindful of, too, is, you've got retailers like Target and even Whole Foods, who are shrinking their footprint in terms of the actual square footage, but they're doubling where they're going, right? Because now they've got especially Target, they're doing a great job with their online presence. So maybe you don't need 30,000 feet, but you still need that physical presence, and you need twice as many. So people need to look at that. We're seeing a big shift in the experiential retail. So there's so many golf simulator concepts out there, the axe throwing, and the immersive experiences. And what's really cool is that's not a fad. Like, that's not going away, and if anything, the pandemic pumped that up. And then we're seeing what I love, it's called medtail. So you used to have those traditional, medical users that were in office. Now they're going, whether it's med spa, whether it's, there's a lot of health and wellness out there, chiropractic, whatever. They're really doing a great job of having a physical presence in the retail space. So it's really fun to be in retail because it's really reinventing itself. And, even these fast casual restaurants, you are seeing fine dining, but not like you saw it before. And now you've got the Bobby Flays and the Gordon Ramsays of the world that are getting into this fast casual space, which is super fun. Like we got a Gordon Ramsay burger joint here. Yeah, it's a $25 burger, but it's amazing. And it's approachable. You can go in after work in a pair of jeans. And I think we're gonna see more of that.
Yeah, that's so cool. Tell me about where you think the brokerage industry will be in 5 years, where you think the transaction will be in 5 years. Would just love if you have any thoughts on that.
So I love that you asked that because this goes back to technology. This is why we all, and I'm going to say it, all the old white guys that are about ready to retire, you got to get on board with technology because, when especially the Gen Zs, get into the marketplace and even beyond that, they're going to expect heavy tech. Um, I mean, this hybrid work model isn't going anywhere. And while belly to belly is super important, especially in our industry, technology like Zoom, Google Meets, Microsoft, Teams, whatever it is. I mean, I'm every single day I'm on that, and it's actually helping me to be more nimble with my clients around the country. It also makes it like even you. I love to see you. It's fun to see you at conferences, and I'd prefer to see you in person. But this is so much better than talking on the phone.
Yeah.
So it's embracing technology because I think that is going to be really at the forefront. I mean, as we're hiring young talent in my office, tech is the first question they're asking about,
Wow, that's
right?
interesting.
It's very interesting. And they're expecting mentors and to be in parts of teams. When I got into the industry, I was basically like literally given a Rolodex and just told to go out and, good luck.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful it's different now, but there's just a completely different expectation with the savviness that goes around tech and, just raising the bar within the industry.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. I have, I think, two more questions here. This has been so great. It's been so fantastic having you. I think the commercial real estate industry lost an absolute powerhouse last year with the longtime CEO of SVN, Kevin Magicomo's untimely passing, right? And Kevin was a Boston guy like me. I knew him in the market. Everyone has a Kevin story. I don't know if there's one or two you'd be willing to share with the audience.
Oh, I do. I miss him so much. He was such a good friend of mine. And I guess I have two real quickly. And actually, one has to do with you because you really got me when we were at the CREI summit and you walked up to me and you said, and I was thinking about starting, this tech startup. I was a broker and you told me that you'd asked Kevin, and you were working for a competing firm too, right? Not that it matters, but you'd ask Kevin's advice and the way he encouraged you to do it, right? And you knew him. What I loved about it is when you talked to him, he didn't just listen to you, but he heard you. Like you were always really heard. And I really appreciated that. And I talked to him last year and I actually challenged him. He was on stage at our national conference and had called out a deal story of these two phenomenal brokers in one of our offices. And they were so excited that he'd called them out. And of course, he passionately told the story and, understood who they were and all of that, even though he hadn't had a chance to meet them yet. He gets off stage and I'm actually talking with the guys. And he says hi to me and kind of walks right past them. And he clearly didn't necessarily recognize who he had been talking about, which is kind of uncommon for him.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be honest, that pissed me off because you should walk the walk and talk the talk. So I got in his face and said, "You really disappointed me. This isn't like you." And he goes, "Well, I wasn't the one who ultimately wrote the story about them." I go, "Don't blame this on somebody else. You're a better person than that." And he owned up to it and then made sure to go talk to them face to face and wound up becoming a mentor to these two guys in the last months of his life. And I'm just really proud of him because he really always took ego out of it and always listened to criticism, even if he didn't want to hear it, and was genuinely so encouraging of women in this industry. And just, he was a real fan of mine. And I'm just super grateful because he didn't do it just to check a box. And we need more people like that in the industry and let's face it, in the world.
Yeah. He was the best. There was no one like him. So I have one more question here, which is anyone else that comes to mind that you think we should be having on this podcast and this kind of initial series on women leaders in commercial real estate?
Yes, Beth Azor for sure.
I think so. goes from the canvassing queen to the cannabis queen. It's perfect. I got to get her on.
Well, she does I'm actually going to Florida in 2 weeks. She does a phenomenal, and people can look this up on her website. She does a phenomenal seminar on investing, because as women in this industry, and this is my best piece of advice I can give to a young woman in the industry, start investing now. If you have the opportunity to get in deals, flip your commission to do a deal, do it. It's the biggest mistake I made, not doing that early on. And the only reason I'm doing it now is because Beth basically bullied me and held me accountable to do it. And so I think she'd be absolutely fantastic. And any woman who does commercial real estate tech, like Marissa with Otso, I think, because that's a tough industry too, right? It's male dominated in a totally different way. And anyway, I love those two. And
Awesome.
Carrie Bob, I mean, hello, Carrie Bob, she's the greatest.
Carrie is the greatest. Yeah, we had Carrie on. We had Marissa on. We're going to launch that episode coming up here. But Beth is someone.
Okay.
Yeah. Beth is a great one. Yeah, we definitely have to get her on. So, Deena, thank you so much. This is a fantastic episode. I really appreciate it.
This was so much fun. Thanks for having me. You're the best. Keep being you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks.